Susan and welcome to my channel. Today I'd like to show you how to make this beautiful embellishment for a purse or a handbag or anything you'd like that you want to embellish and just make it your own and unique. This is a really simple technique and it won't take you days to do. So let's get started. I'm starting out with this purse I purchased from AliExpress. I'll leave the link below. They were very, very inexpensive. It comes with this cord that you can knot through the sides here, but I want to make a beaded cord. Now it's just like an envelope crossbody bag. And the neat thing is you can take your phone. I want to show it to you when it's on. You can use your phone right through the purse. So if you wanted to make a phone call, if you wanted to use an app, anything you want to do, you can use it right through your purse here. So if you get a message or a text, you don't have to take this out of your purse. You can just flip it over and look at it. I think that's the coolest thing about this bag. So that is why I was really interested in it. And now on the cover here, I wanted to do a little beaded piece. I've got my polymer clay bead. I'll link the video below for this. This piece would look so pretty on here with some beading around it. I just want to make this bag just a little bit more special. It's kind of plain. And the easiest way, now I could take this whole felt piece and actually take it all down and put it all around here, but I don't really want it in the back here. The reason I don't want this in the back is this would catch onto if I have a lace jacket or a shirt. I just don't want the beadwork to catch on. So I only want to do the beadwork on this front panel here. So in order to have a piece that fits in here, I'm just going to take my felt and put it in that way. I'm just going to take a pen and go around this so I get this exact pattern, and it gives me a better way to realize where I put that heart, because I still want to bead around this heart, and I like this little heart that's on here. It's got a little magnetic closure right there, so it won't be a problem if I put a heart piece on this, but I really need to know where to glue this down to start. Now my idea for this is to have some pieces almost like wings curling around here, coming out of the top of the heart, like a mirrored image, going that way. So my whole design. Now in order to get this right on the money without spending a whole lot of time, I've already put my heart down. I've outlined this from the purse so I know that that is even and cut it around. I've put my heart down, outlined that so I know that's even, and I've drawn my little swirl exactly where I wanted. Now I just folded the paper and traced it to this side, but there's no point in tracing it to the top because when I cut it on this side, it'll cut the top. And that will give me exactly where I want my design to be. So I'm just going to cut around this. And this is literally just a scrap piece of paper. It was actually a bill from some things I bought. And now I just took it out of the garbage. So here I have this larger heart. If I turn it over for you, you get to see it a little better. And what I want is just some beads coming out around this. So when I put this over my purse, now you can get a better idea of how this will fit. So now I know exactly where it's going to go. It's easier for me to make this as a template exactly onto my felt and leave a little bit of room so I know exactly where this is going to go. I feel I want this up a little bit higher now that I'm looking at it upside down so I get a better angle. And that will give me a better idea of where I want to put this heart. Now it's real easy for me to transfer this over onto my felt, and I have exactly the idea of where I want my design and how I want it to lay out. And I feel like just this little flap is enough. I like this blush color on my purse, and I love the little delicacy in here, so I don't want it to be too busy that it takes away. And I just want it to be a little enhancement that makes the purse look like not just an ordinary purse, but a more expensive piece. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this, but we're going to try with this light pink marker because I think it will be easier for me not to have a really contrasting edge. So now I can glue my heart down and draw my curly cues just pull them right out of this curly Q on the side here. And this one I think I can just eyeball at this point. And now you can get a better idea. And I'm going to take a little bit of E6000 and just glue this on. So this piece actually has some holes in it. You can't really see them too well from the back, but you can see them on the front here. Just these two little dots on the side. And I'm just going to use that to sew them in. But since this is going to be in an area that it gets a lot of pull on it, I want to put a decent amount of my E6000 down on it, and I want it a little bit higher so that it's not totally in the way. Now I will let this dry thoroughly and then come back, because now my glue is all dry, and those few little holes, I've put some size 15 seed beads in there, and they're real hard to see. I have to get it real close because they're so tiny. Now I'm going to add size 11 beads all the way around this. I just want to encase this a little bit. Even though it's glued down and sewn down here, I still want to put some beads around it. And I'm just going to do, now this is a very similar color to the purse, but I just really wanted to bring it in around this. Because this has a rainbow, I wanted to highlight the pink color. And I'm adding 4 beads. And I'll repeat this process of adding 4 beads, go through the center 2, and connect them, and you'll see as I do this, it will just complete around this heart. So I come up between the 2 beads, and then I go through the last 2, add 4, and make a line completely around the heart. And you can see right away how this picks up the pink color in this rainbow in the centerpiece here. Now I will continue to go all the way around. Now that I've gone all around my bead, I'm going to go through my last bead that I put in, and I'm going to add a bead and skip a bead so that when I go through the bead next to it, I will have a bead that sticks out. And I'm going to go around this entire heart, adding a bead and skipping a bead, so that I have a bunch of beads I can connect together in my next go around. So you can see I have these 2 beads sticking out. I'll continue all around the heart the same way. I'm going to skip a bead where I've added a bead so it sticks out, and go through the next bead. So now that I've gone through them all, I went through the first bead that I added that was sticking up, and I'm going through the next one. I'm adding a bead in between each bead that I've added, so it creates another row of beads. And this will create a little line of beads coming all around this heart so that it will frame up a little rim around my heart bead. So I will continue this all the way around till I get back to where I started. Now that I've gone around all that second row, you can see how it's built up and really nice of a bezel around this. Now I'm going through the bead next to the last bead that I put in, which is the highest bead, and I'm going to add a size 15 seed bead, and you'll find one bead is higher than the other, so you want to put this in between. Once again, adding a bead, skipping a bead, and you'll find that this little bead will fit perfectly in between these lower beads. And I'm just going to go all the way around, adding these little tiny beads in between the higher and lower pink seed beads. And these are pretty easy to see because of the difference in color here. So I'll just continue this all the way around till I get back over here. Now I'm finished, and I'm going back through that first gold bead that I added just to tie this all together. And now, just so that I can zip this all up and pull it all around this heart-shaped bead, because my problem is I don't want to just have this glued down. This may start to peel up from getting all the use where it's lifting on the bag after time. This way, when I have all these beads around it, I don't have to ever worry about this pulling up, because it's right at that purse clasp and it's an area that's going to get pulled on quite a bit. So now I'm just going to go through all of the gold beads and connect them. Now you're not going to be able to really see what I'm doing because I'm using a matching thread. This time I just can't use a contrasting thread or this will look awful, but this will pull all of these gold beads together up and around this heart, and securing this in nicely that I never have to worry about it coming off or not looking nice and clean. And you can see when I pull on that how it pulls those beads up and around here. And I'll continue that all the way around this whole piece. Now I've been playing around with some beads to do this little swirl around the edges. I didn't know how I was going to do it, just playing around with colors and which direction I want to go in. This seems to be what I'm happiest with. I like the way the gold complements the gold, and I think it'll be a nice contrast on the pink. I just threw these little flowers in randomly just to see how they would go, and I liked the caned flower best with this caned bead. I just like the way they complement each other, and then this kind of gives the eye some resting place. Now, to put all of this in, for me to sew these on, these I put the hole in all through the leaf. They have a long hole that goes through them completely like that, so they'll be easy to hold down. If you have the ones where you put the hole just at the top here, so you could use it as a fringe also, then I like to glue it down on one end on the back. But if you have the holes where you have it long wise that you have the thread holding it down, you don't need to glue it down. The only reason you would glue it down at this point is so that it would stay in place in case something hit it off, but I don't see anything moving it off of this, it getting that much use on a purse. Now my easiest place to start beading these in, I like to start here because then I don't worry if this doesn't match exactly. And now that I look at this upside down, this looks a little lopsided. So I want to correct that before I sew this in. This side looks a little closer, this side looks a little further. And sometimes when you turn your work upside down, you see it more. It sounds kind of crazy, but I turn a lot of my pieces upside down just so that I can see. Now I don't want to go outside of this line, but that looks more even now. And remember, we're going to cover this with beads, so no one else is going to see this but us. Now where I would start is down here in the center, because I'm going to have this bead that's going to lay on top of them, so if it doesn't meet perfectly, that's fine. And I don't care how it goes on the end here. I want it to look a little organic so that it does look like it's some natural leaves coming out. So I'm going to come up here. And the biggest question is I need to leave room for 2 leaves to come out each end. So sometimes it's best to take another one and just put it over there, just so that you can see how much space you need to where you're going to start. So I'm just going to hold these down, follow my line, and bead along. And I'll bead these down one at a time, and then I will go back in and reinforce them, just because it's going on a purse. If it were for a jewelry piece, I think it would be fine, but because of where it's going, it may get a lot of movement here. Now, if you prefer, you could glue them down and sew them down, but I think just sewing them down twice would do the trick. Sometimes dealing with the glue is more of a mess than I want to cope with. So I'll just add these one at a time along my line here. So now that you can see how simple that was for me to sew in, I'm going to sew in this other side. Then I'm going to go through and one by one reinforce all of my beads that I've got in here. Because this goes on top of a bag, if one of these comes out, it'll be fine because I will have glue on the back of this, so all of the thread won't come out. But if I have 2 threads in each one, I don't have to worry about them ever coming out. Now you can use glue and glue them down and then sew through them, but I'm just a natural sewer, so it's just easier for me to sew than to deal with that messy glue. Now I have all of my leaves reinforced and all sewn down. I want to add all my little flowers. Now I have some size 15 seed beads here. I always use gold if you haven't noticed. It's my favorite in the center of the flowers. You can use colors, it's not an issue. I just like the way the gold will complement everything else here. And I know I'll be adding a color in the background here and probably along the edge here. So I don't know what I want to do. I'd rather just use the gold and add my color in the background. I know the gold is a safe color for me. There's so much going on in this Natasha bead. This is a controlled Natasha. To put these in, basically I'm just going to follow whatever I put on this side, I put on that side just to make it easier. And I'll start with this center bead. Sometimes it's just easier to take all those beads out and start over. And I like to put 3 beads in the center. You could put 2. It's my thing that I like 3. I like the way it looks. It's not about reinforcement. It's not about the size of the beads. Although this one I probably should put 3 11s. The smaller beads, the 15s, will work better. I like the way this sits on top here with the other focal bead. I just like the way it complements it, and it gives a nice look with that millefiori on both of them. Now for the sides, I'm just going to grab these randomly. I don't even have them. But it's always easier to put your larger beads in first so that you get an idea if you were having different size beads here. And once again, my hang up, I want 3 beads in the center of each one. 1 bead looks fine, but it's my personal hang up. Just easier to go side by side. If you want, you could do one side and then match the other, but I have a tendency to then use ones that I don't have 2 of, so. Or you could lay it out. I don't like to think about my beading that much. I just like to enjoy the process and kind of let it go. It's kind of my relaxation time of not thinking and just letting the beads talk to me. Now since I'm on the side, I'm going to fill in another bead here. And let's use this darker one because I grabbed it. Now these beads are from when I show how to do the little mini carnation flower beads, and I show you how to do a blend, and I'll cut out just different ones from the same blend, like a Skinner blend, and that's what these are from. And that's why I say I probably don't have more than 2 of each color, and so it's really easy to use more than 2 in one spot. And you never seem to get those Skinner blends the second time. If you're trying to match it up, it can be challenging, so I'm always cautious with how I use them, that I don't try to put one side in at a time, because I know I am famous for not having enough of what I need. And that's that darker color. And I'll just continue going back and forth, sewing these flowers into this entire little turn area here between the leaves. Now I know there's a lot of gaps there, and we're going to fill that in next, so don't worry about if you have gaps. These are a larger bead. Always better to put those down first and then fill in the spaces last. So I will just continue to go back and forth and fill these all in, and then I'll be back because I think you kind of get the gist of this. Now, to fill in all this area in between the little flowers, I thought I'd use this pretty pale green so it'll be subtle. And these are size 11 seed beads. I've got some size 8 seed beads that I thought would look like pretty little flower buds. And I'm just going to put a size 15 seed bead in the middle of those. And I'm just doing little buds of 3 beads. I'm just adding 3 of the 11 beads, and I'm just going down. And that's just going to give me little loops, sort of like a mossy look. And I'll do a bunch of those to fill in the area. And I'm not going in any particular direction. I'm just letting it haphazardly fill in the area. Just adding 3 at a time, making an outline around the heart. And make sure you hold it up, because when it flops over like this, you get a lot more room. And then when you pull it up, sometimes there's too many beads in there and there's not enough room. You have to pull a few out. If it sounds like I'm talking from experience, I am. And so I'm just filling in that area, so I have a nice background and you don't see the felt. Then what I'm going to do is just come out of that, if there's any little spots or anything that you can see the felt. And I'm going to add one of the 11s, one of the 8s, and one of the 15s. I'm going to go back down through the 8 and the 11, so that the 15 is the stopper bead on the end, and it will look like a little flower bud. So if you see it closely, you can see how that, you just get that little bit of pink and a little bit of gold. So I'll continue to do that all throughout here and come back and show you the difference. And now you can see how I filled in this one side, how just those little size 8s with a 15 in the middle kind of give a feeling of little buds without putting too much work into it. So you don't have to be so literal with things sometimes. Now I just have to fill in this side, and you can see how quickly this is all coming together. Now that I have both sides filled in completely, you can get a better view of where this is going. Where the pouch has this point on it is where this point is in here. So I just need to finish that up. And I was thinking of adding some more green to it or something, but it is quite busy, a little bit busier than I expected. So I'm thinking of adding these little flowers in here, and then just filling this in with green beads, because which this color green is what's in here. It looks more gold now. These beads look very green in the tube, but when I put them on, they came a little bit more gold colored. So it is what it is. I can't change it at this point. And I'm thinking of just taking this same color and filling in all along here. So rather than watch me do this step by step, I'm just going to do it with the camera and speed it up. So now that I've got the flowers in, it's just a matter of how I want to put these green ones in. I'd add more pink here, but I'm afraid that adding that pink will just make this look more elongated instead of a beautiful frame around the heart. So I think the only option I have is the green. Adding another color would make this fight more with the eye, where this will blend more with this whole piece that I've already got. So I'm kind of trapped that I have to add the green ones, whether I want to or not. Now along here on the edge, I don't want this to be a pattern like I have here. This is all a pattern and how it makes this beautiful frame. I want this to be kind of rambly like these other pieces here, so that it's just up and down and kind of gives more of a texture. So I'm taking 3 beads at a time again and just making little loops so that they lay kind of flat and a little bit lay kind of up, so that I have the up and down, and it creates this beautiful texture, which is really what I want. That gives kind of that mossy feel. Now there's no rhyme or reason to how I do this. It's just a matter of filling in the area and then going in another direction. And sometimes they lay flat, sometimes they go over each other. I'm just literally filling the area in wherever it's got a blank spot with beads. And it looks like it would take forever, but actually this goes really quick, because remember, you're adding 3 of these at a time, and so you're just filling in a little blank with 3 beads at a time. So as much as it looks like it would take hours and hours, it doesn't, because you've got so many beads in one shot. Any stitch where you add multiple beads goes really quick. Okay, and now you can see I've got that all nicely outlined and I've got all that nice bubbly texture in there. And I could add some more of these little pink beads, but since this is going up by the closure, I don't want anything that would be sticking up more and be pulling on it. Otherwise, I really like the way these little pink beads look in between here, but I think this just kind of frames this off nicely with the plainness. Sometimes I have to stop myself. Now, I'm just going to take my thread and pull it through several times and knot it because I need to cut around this before I edge it, and I definitely don't have enough thread to get very far edging it, so I might as well just cut it off now and start with a new piece. And I like to go through it several times, especially because this will be going on a purse, so I want it really tight. Now remember, I'll have glue on the back here, so that will lock this all in place once more, so it'll just make it tighter. And I'm going to keep these green beads to edge it with, but this is the worst part, is cutting around it and cutting close enough but not cutting your stitches. Always leave a little extra. And over here I'm going to leave that little bit of pink in here because I can always fill that in with beads once I've cut this. And if you want to cut around the beads so that you cut in those divvies, you could. I really want it to look like it's more of an accent of this heart shape. I don't want it to have that waviness to it, so I don't mind filling that in with some green beads. Whatever you do, don't cut too close to those threads. They will cut, and then you'll have to re-sew everything back on. Yeah, it actually goes, it has a little gap here when I pull it up, but I think it'll be okay because you'll see that little piece of gold there, and I'll have this all edged out in green. And then when you see the bag, it's down at this angle, so you're really not going to see this underneath part, so I think it'll be fine. Now I'm just going to go back and put some green in between these little leaves here, just the same little stitch that I did here, and then we'll start to edge it. Now I have all of that beading filled in, so you don't even see that little bit of pink. But I'm not going to add a backing to this because I'm going to glue this directly to the purse, but I want to finish this felt edge. I don't like the way that looks. It just looks unfinished to me. So I finished up here, and I'm going to take one at a time my beads and just do an edging. It's basically a blanket stitch with a bead added in between. So you're going to make a stitch up, pull it, and then go up through the bottom of the bead so that the bead stands straight up. And I'll do this a few times so you can see how I get this beautiful edging, and it'll look so much more finished on the purse. So I'm just pulling it through like a regular stitch and then coming up through the bottom of the bead. And now you can see in here where it's all finished off and you won't see that felt. And it's that nice pretty edging. Now I've got half of this edged, and you can see the difference of how this looks so nice and clean and finished. And this side you see that rough felt, so it looks unfinished, and you can see it really much better on the back side where you can just see it directly. You can see here how it's beautifully edged. When I place this on the purse, you'll see that now it looks more finished, where this other side without the edging looks kind of rough. So it looks like a perfect little embellishment that we'll be able to glue down and make it blend in perfectly. And I missed on these sides here, but I don't think it really bothers me because it kind of looks like the way this comes into this point. When you leave the gold here, it looks like it's meant to be like that, so I'm not going to worry about it. Now I have my piece all edged, and you can see how pretty it looks and how it looks like a single embellishment, so it doesn't look like it's part of something or unfinished. Now what I'm going to glue this down with is some E6000, and you can get this anywhere. There's other kinds of glues you can use, but this is my go-to glue because it's the easiest to find. There might be better epoxy glues or whatever, but this is a nice flexible type of glue. And I want to spread the glue all over this entire embellishment. Not too much on the edges that it scoots out, but just enough to cover it that it'll stick down really well. And this will also glue down all of my threads. If you have the thinner top, you might want to take a piece of felt that you've got a little edge and spread your glue out with that. You want to make sure all of it is covered so that you don't get a buckle in it at some point, and then you have to pull it off, because once this is on, it's pretty much on. And I want to make sure I glue a lot around the top here, get it real close to these beads, and around the point here, because that's a grab spot where I'll be grabbing the purse to open it. So now that I've got it well glued, oops, there's a spot here I didn't get enough. Take your time on this. And now I'm just going to flip this over and glue it down. Now you really only get one shot at this, so I'm just going to hold the edges and make sure I line it up with this gold point here and push it down real good now. So I will just hold this in place for a few minutes. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to start to set up, and in 20 minutes it's really set up. I will give it like 12 hours before I would use the purse, or even 24 hours would be better. But we still have to finish the chain, so it won't be ready for a while anyway. Now here where I had the cord, that was this type of a leatherette cord that they put a knot at the end to hold the purse up, I've decided to use a beaded chain instead. I just thought it would kind of jazz it up a little bit differently. And to make this beaded chain is really simple. You'll need some 24 gauge wire. This I'm using is gold. Doesn't matter whether it's silver or gold, whatever your favorite color is. And I'm going to cut about 6 inches off. I like to just work in little smaller 6-inch segments. It just is easier to manage. And you'll need a round nose, a flat nose, and a cutter, so that you can make those little links. And to make these little links, I'm taking my round nose pliers, I'm bending it backwards, and then I'm just taking the round pliers and making a loop. So there I have a nice loop. I'm going to hold that loop with my flat nose pliers, and I'm going to take my round nose pliers and just wrap around this. And that will secure this loop perfectly. Now I use dead soft wire. I just find it easier to work with. If you have a hard wire, you'll know what I'm talking about. Now I'm just going to clip that end, and now I have a perfect little connector. And I'm just going to put one of my little polymer clay lentil beads on here. I have a separate tutorial on how I make these. They're very simple. And the nice thing about these is you can make them in whatever color you like. And I'm just going to put the lentil at the bottom there and repeat that same bending back and around to create another loop. So I have my other loop there. Now I'm just going to take my flat nose pliers and hold it, and then wrap around it again. This is super simple. I've done this in numerous videos, but it's my most favorite chain because you can use any beads you have, and if you have a larger bead like this, it goes much quicker. Now my little crystal beads are smaller, so they take a little bit longer just because you have to have more links. But I'm going to once again wrap it, and now I'm going to connect these two together. But knowing just how to make this simple chain, you can do so many things with a simple chain. It's amazing. And just some wire. I'm a terrible wire worker. I don't really like working with wire, but I love making chain with wire because it's so versatile. And now I'm just going to add my little crystal and add another little loop and keep on going. So you just keep making links and adding them, and that's how you create a chain like this. And this is the chain that we're going to use to connect the purse. So I need it to be as long as the cord was that came with the purse. This way I don't really have to measure because it doesn't really matter how long that is. It just matters that it's that length so I can have a nice crossbody. So you just keep connecting these links to each other, and next time I add a polymer bead, I'll put it on both ends. So you can see this beautiful chain that I have, and what's nice about this, it really will set the pocketbook off. So even if you didn't want to do the embroidered flap, just adding the chain alone would be quite pretty. Now I'm at the little end here where it would have a knot as the closure, and I want to attach my chain to this. I've added 2 of my crystals so that it will fit through here, and I've added another piece of wire so I can fit it through here. Some people might think you'd want to wrap it around, but you don't want to put any wire around this. It will after a while just cut away at this plastic leather product or even leather, the wire will just start digging into it, especially from the weight of your phone. So I find it better if you put a bigger bead on the end. This is one of the bigger beads that I have. And just putting a little larger bead there will create a little stopper at the end. Same thing as a knot, just like this one. So I'm just going to make sure this doesn't fit through here, which it doesn't, and then loop the end. Now, if you wanted to just end this with a bead, you could use a head pin here instead of wire, and that would give you a space that you don't have the loop. But I'm thinking of a few more crystals at the bottom, so now you can see this fits in there perfectly, and I don't have to worry about that pulling on my purse at all. It'll just hold it nice and tight. And now I've added a few little crystals here, and when I talk about head pins, these are a 24 gauge head pin, so they're easier to bend. These have a little ball on the end. Sometimes they have a nail head on the end. They all work the same. If some people say to me, where did you get those? And I don't honestly remember. I buy them at bead shows. But if you have the nail head and you want that little ball look, just put a size 15 seed bead on the end and you'll get that same effect. Now with these, you're just putting the same beads on as you would with the other connector. It's just that it ends with the head pin at the end, so you won't have that loop. And then I just connected them the same as I did the rest of the chain. And here you can see the finished phone purse all decorated and how it looks with both sides done. I just want to give you a quick close-up. Even though you've seen it numerous times, somehow when it's all finished, it always looks different to me. And here we have our beautiful lentil chain, and I'll put it on so that you can see it better. So here I wanted to show you how it looks when you wear it crossbody. I wanted you to see my jewelry and the jewelry I have on, that it doesn't conflict too much, but it really depends what you're wearing. If I had a black blouse on, this would be a little bit more obvious, so then I might just consider this as my jewelry. Okay, so now you can see it as I'm wearing it as I back up, and you can see how it's just a little tiny pouch. It looks so much bigger up close in the screen, but the neat thing is I can just grab this. I have my phone right here, and I can use this if I get a text, I get a call, a scammer, anything. I don't have to ruffle through my purse. I can do it that way. And this purse has such a nice little pocket in it that I can keep my credit cards and my cash, because that's really all I need anymore. I don't really carry a lot in my purse like I used to. And just having that nice little magnetic snap, it's perfect. I love this when I go to the farmer's market, because I'm always carrying other bags and things, or the flea markets, or the outside fairs, because sometimes I just don't want to carry a bunch of stuff, or I know I'm going to end up purchasing like at the farmer's market, and my arms are usually full of stuff. So this is just an easier way, and I don't have to ruffle through to find things. Now, of course, you know I made more than one. This is the other one I made. I wanted to go completely different with this blue one. So I took all these polymer leaves and just layered them up. I didn't have all of one color, and I was kind of more interested that I didn't have more than one color, because I liked the way they looked, just adding the variation of shading. And I did glue some of these down on the bottom here, and then as I added each row, I glued them to each row in after I sewed them down, just because this is going to get a lot of lifting as you go in and out of it, and I felt like if those little feathers moved up and down, it would be quite annoying. And this is just a Natasha bead. I want to show you up close, that I created just with some scraps, and I just wanted the wings coming out of it, so it kind of gave a more interesting kind of a look. And this one, I used the cord that came with it. This is that pleather cord, and I used the knot, and then I just sewed right through the hole where they stitched it, and added a little beaded tassel on each side, just for fun, because I could. It's sort of like pocketbook jewelry. And once again, this one on the back, you can have your phone inside and use it. And here's the blue one. And I did find one thing about this bag, because I was just putting it on without the phone in it, since I had two of them. It feels funny. It's too light without the phone in it, because it's very lightweight. So really the only weight you have added to it is any heavier beads or seed beads or glass beads, because really the polymer clay is very lightweight. The pleather on this is very lightweight, so it's really just the weight of your phone. And once again, you can just see how it's just so easily accessible. So I thought this was a fun idea, not overwhelming, so that you could just do this in an afternoon, or just a nice little gift to give a girlfriend to make. You know, sometimes you're just looking for that nice little something that's a great gift, item and something that just is I'm thinking of you, or a birthday gift, and not something with a huge investment of time and money. This is one of those neat things. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope I gave you lots of ideas and inspiration, and thanks for watching.